We just had a great conversation with Eliza Gilkyson, who will be co-headlining with another tremendous singer-songwriter, Gretchen Peters, at Next Stage in Putney, Vermont. It's this Sunday, April 30th, and we ain't done yet. I've got Gretchen Peters on the line now. Gretchen.
Hey, how you doing?
First, congratulations on the new double album retrospective of Besties and Rarities.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It was a labor of love. Does anybody put out double albums anymore? I don't know.
Yeah, only the best people. And then that's a kind of a monster milestone.
It was a milestone in a number of ways. The release of that album coincided with the 20th anniversary of my first album, The Secret of Life, and the 20th anniversary of really the beginning of my touring career, or at least the bulk of it. And it just felt like a good kind of stopping place to look back and say, oh, here's this body of work. This is what I've done. And the last two albums that I had released prior to that, which were an album called Hello, Cruel World, followed by an album called Blackbirds, had done so well that I wanted to reflect those. You know, I wanted tracks from those albums to be in the retrospective because there were a whole lot of people that came kind of to the party in the last 4 or 5 years, so to speak, you know, new fans that kind of weren't really very familiar with the previous 8 or 7 or 8 albums. So it was just kind of a good time to stop and pause. And I don't really love looking backwards so much. I'm much more prone to be thinking about what I want to do next. But including the second disc of rarities and hidden tracks and song demos and things like that made it really, really fun for me because so a lot of times those things are things you wish, gosh, if I could just release this in some form, I really would like people to hear it, but it just doesn't fit on an album. So it gave me this great opportunity to include all of that stuff, which, you know, those of us who are kind of music completists really love it when people do that sort of thing.
I was thinking you have such a deep catalog that it must have been impossible to curate.
Well, I mean, I think the hard part about doing that is the tension between the songs that I love, that I felt were the strongest, and the tracks that I felt were the strongest versus the ones that, quote unquote, did well, you know, that were on the radio or whatever. And for the most part, they're one and the same. But then there are other tracks that were really fan favorites that just popped out because when we started playing them, people kept on requesting them and they found their way into our set list, and some of them have never found their way back out again. So there was kind of a push and pull from a few different directions. And it's always hard because all your songs are like babies and you don't want to choose your favorite baby, but it worked out, I think.
Your career arc has been really interesting, taking root first in, you know, songwriting hits for freaking everybody: George Strait, Martina McBride, Patti LaBelle, Shania Twain, Pam Tillis, Bryan Adams, Anne Marie, Etta James, Neil Diamond, Trisha Yearwood, Jimmy LaFave. Sad news about Jimmy.
Yes, I know. We're all really heartbroken.
But you never locked yourself into the songwriter shtick.
Well, you know, I think that's because it wasn't a shtick for me. I mean, it was, my mom had moved me out to Boulder, Colorado from New York, where I grew up in my junior high school years. And so I kind of cut my teeth musically out in Boulder in the 70s. And I didn't really understand that there was a separation between songwriting and singing and making records. To me, it was just, you know, all the artists that I loved, Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, they all wrote their songs, they sang them, they made records. Boom, you know, I thought that's what I want to do. And that's kind of how I modeled myself after my heroes like that. So when I came to Nashville, I was really just feeling my way in terms of growing as a songwriter, not necessarily really trying ever to write songs that would be hits, because honestly, I was never very good at that. The songs that I did write that did go on to become hits for other artists, it all kind of felt accidental, to be honest. They were just my own attempts to write something that I thought was good. So it wasn't ever that I was really trying to be a Nashville songwriter in the kind of traditional sense because I wasn't really aware of what that even meant. I was, I was copying my heroes. And honestly, I think I had a lot of success in Nashville in the 90s because there was this wonderful arc that happened for a while when great artists, especially I have to say the female country artists, people like some of the ones you mentioned, like Trisha Yearwood, Patti Loveless, Martina McBride, they were recording really superior songs, really interesting songs, really thought-provoking songs, and it gave enough of an opening for a writer like me who wasn't ever going to be writing about pickup trucks and beer to get a word in edgewise, so to speak. So, I'm just so grateful I was kind of in the right place at the right time.
While we're still talking songwriting, I want to give you a shout out for On a Bus to St. Cloud. As a born and bred Minnesotan, good job on that one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, people in Minnesota love it. They still seem kind of stunned that I even knew about St. Cloud. Although I have to tell you, when I wrote that song, I had never been there. I saw it on the map. I was planning a road trip, and I've always said that place names are such great jumping off points for songs. And, when I look at a map, half the time I get lost just looking at the words, looking at the names of places. And I saw that on the map, and I thought, I just instantly conjured this snow-covered place in my mind. And that's how the song was written. It was only years later that I actually went to St. Cloud, not on a bus, but in a van.
How did it measure up to your imagination?
Well, it was summertime, so it wasn't exactly how I had it pictured.
We have a relentlessly touring folk duo based right nearby Hungrytown. They're respected here in the States, but over in the UK, they're like really embraced. They get their best press from the BBC. That happened to you too.
Yeah, I really owe probably the longevity of my recording career to the fans in the UK. I went over there very early. I went over there shortly after my first album was released. A friend of mine who was in Nancy Griffith's band at the time urged me to go. He said, you just need to go over there. They're going to get you. They're going to love you. And I went and I did, I started out just like you do, playing small venues. I kept going back because I could sense that there was some kind of kinship between me and the audiences over there. And next thing I know, it's been 20 years and we are doing venues the size of which I could only have dreamt about. But I have to say there was a lot of touring and a lot of, time put in to get to that point. 20 years is not what I'd call an overnight success, but it's an audience that is so sensitive and loyal, and they really love lyrics. And I think that's why we connected early on and why we still connect.
America is just too illiterate.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I did get also, I have to say in fairness, I got a very late start really touring here. My first record came out and I was sort of marketed as a country artist. And that was that was kind of like wearing a shoe that I knew didn't fit. Yeah. And it kind of delayed my whole career in touring because I really only found my audience over in the States once I started connecting with a folk audience. Had I been maybe a little more assertive, I might have been able to make that leap earlier on. But it was, when you've got a whole record label spending untold amounts of money and they're telling you you're a country artist, you think, okay, well, I guess that's what I am. But once I started connecting with the folk audiences, it was just like I found my place. I was like, it's like the Swan and the Ugly Duckling. You kind of go, oh, I'm a folk artist. That's what I am. And it all started to make sense after that.
And it's working. I mean, you've got great coverage in Rolling Stone and NPR, and you're in the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. That stuff ain't hay.
No. And the Hall of Fame thing was really so meaningful to me. A lot of the reason that it moved me, it's incredible to think when you think about the people that are in the Hall of Fame. But I think one of the things that really meant so much to me is that I write mostly by myself, and Nashville is very much a co-writing town. So to be recognized by your peers, most of whom at one point or another I had said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to co-write with you. It's not you, it's me. I'm just not a co-writer. But to be recognized that way after you've done, most of the work you've done over a 20-year period, really all by yourself in your bedroom, it's mind-blowing. It was really a moment that I'll treasure forever.
It's interesting that you're a solitary writer. I think in July, you and Eliza and Mary Gaucher are doing a songwriting workshop.
Yes, we are. We've taught separately, all three of us, quite a bit, and we have taught only once before together, and the synergy between the three of us teaching was just fantastic. And so I'm really looking forward to doing this workshop in July in Taos. We all have slightly different approaches to teaching, but I think what we all do with students is not really teach them how to write, but shine some light on the difficulties that you're going to run into on that path and really encourage them to speak truth in their songwriting. I think it was a lesson that took me a really long time to learn and to be bold enough and brave enough to actually tell truths in my songs that were uncomfortable. And then, of course, once I did that, I realized that's where the good stuff is. That's where all the good stuff is. And that's kind of what we try to teach our students. So if you've been listening now, you don't need to go to a songwriting workshop. You've got it.
No, the workshops they're something else,
They're really great. They're really life-changing for a lot of people. They're very emotional, and it's a wonderful thing to see light bulbs going on and inspiration happening.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's going to be any survivors of this one.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
Meant in the best possible way. So so it sounds like your songwriting has changed, maybe not practically, but topically.
Yes, definitely. This really coincided, as it does, I think, with some really major life changes that happened back around 2010. I just decided it was time to let the guard down and be very brutally honest. And, I think the events in your life that really, really shape you are the difficult ones. Yeah. It's always the hard stuff that makes you stronger, better, more compassionate, all of that stuff. And I think that after going through some of that, I had it in my mind that what was most important for me to do was to really be honest. And rather than trying to answer questions in my songs, I wanted to ask them, which implies that you don't have the answers. And I think, I know that the response that I got from those songs, the first batch of those songs was on my record, Hello, Cruel World. The response was so strong. I knew that I was on the right path already for myself, but to get that kind of response back from listeners just solidified my belief that that's what art is really about, and that's what I wanted to do with whatever time I've got left to write songs, is be vulnerable in those songs, not pretend that I have some sort of answer.
Eliza kind of described her songwriting process as pretty intellectual. Mary tends to cut open her heart and then slave over it. Yep. What do you do? I'm two things I would say. I'm very intuitive in terms of following my nose. If I feel something's right, I don't question it. And the other thing for me is that I'm a very visual songwriter. I'm a huge movie fan. I love visual arts. I love all things visual. I love design. And I tend to see my songs. I tend to see scenes and characters, and I kind of have to see that in order to write really well about a character. I have to kind of see what the movie looks like, in essence. I'm a storyteller at heart, and I think I share that with Mary. And so I kind of go about, I really think of my songs as little kind of 3 to 5 minute movies. And that's how I approach it. Having said that, I'm a complete word
nerd. I mean, I'm a grammar nerd. I love words. I love playing with them. So, that I think, I would have been some kind of a writer had I never picked up a guitar. But I think that the visual aspect of songwriting is really important to me. And I really try to talk to students about that. Think about your song as a movie. What are you seeing?
Mm-hmm. The evolution from Purple Crayon Records to Scarlet Letter Records, just on the sheer basis of the names, is genius.
Thank you. It was somewhat unintentional, but they both had their reasons. My first label that I released my second record on was Purple Crayon, which was based on a children's book called Harold and the Purple Crayon. Whatever Harold drew with his crayon became real. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was such a lovely metaphor for songs. Create worlds that are real. And Scarlet Letter came along years later after I got divorced, and I was no longer a young ingenue, but a grown woman, and it just seemed like the perfect segue.
So we're talking with Gretchen Peters, who's going to be playing a Coebill with Eliza Gilkyson at Next Stage in Putney on Sunday, April 30th. There's a meet and greet at 6. The show starts at 7. They're going to play individually and then together. And the tickets are available at the door, $20, which is insane.
Such a deal. You get us both for $20. We're going to do 2 sets separately, and we're also going to do some things together. I love singing with Eliza, and as part of Through Moon and the Truth, we do a lot of that. There will definitely be a collaborative set at the end with us both.
And Next Stage is a small theater and a converted church. They've put a lot of energy into it. It's a great community space. Is this the kind of room that you like?
Yes, I love those kind of spaces. They tend to be wonderful spaces for music. Any space where people are really, their main purpose there is to come there and listen rather than coming together to drink or party or talk or do whatever. And usually, we find those kinds of venues in small communities, and those tend to be the best gigs. Everybody's there for the same purpose. In an age when you can sort of digitally reproduce anything, the one thing that you can't reproduce is that feeling of sitting in the dark with a lot of other people or a few other people and sharing a moment of music that transcends your day or your night. And whether you're the one, delivering the music or the one listening to it, the one receiving it, that's something that no one can reproduce in any kind of a way. To me, it's the whole reason why I do all the other things I do. There's nothing that can replace that. And it's really special. And, when we find our tribe, as it were, who are ready and willing to do that, it's wonderful. There's nothing like it.
Who is your tribe?
I joke that, there's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's people who find sad songs depressing, and then there's the rest of us. And I think that's kind of most of the answer. I mean, Eliza and I, between us, probably have 3 happy songs. I've always loved sad songs. From the time I was 12 years old and put my head in between 2 speakers and cried my heart out to Jackson Browne, I've just always loved the sad ones. But I think, above and beyond that, I think it's those of us that find some kind of transcendence in music. I think there are the people for whom music is a lot more than just entertainment. It's actually sort of food for the soul.
I'm going to take us out on a song of yours called Blackbird. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
Well, Blackbirds is the title song from my last studio album, and it's a murder ballad, which was something I'd always wanted to write. And I was so proud of how this song came out. It won the Americana UK Song and Album of the Year last year. Writing this was kind of like solving a mystery or writing a detective novel or something. There was a lot of whodunit and what happened here, and my co-writer Ben Glover and I really enjoyed the process of writing it.
Gretchen Peters, her website is just how you think it is, GretchenPeters.com. Easy to spell, easy to get to, lovely to look at. Thanks for the time with us today, and looking forward to the show.
So are we. Thank you so much.
Blackbirds came at dusk, and they roosted in the cane, raised such a ruckus that it shook my window pane. And I'm covered up in dirt, and I stink of kerosene. And no matter what I do, I can't get clean. The last thing I remember was your footsteps in the hall, whiskey in your voice, and a shotgun on the wall. Now there's shadows in the shadows, there's trouble in the cane, and there's things you do that you just can't explain. Uneasy lies the head, unfaithful is the heart, ungrateful and unlucky and untrue. And no one saw me come, and no one saw me go. Only the blackbirds and you. Come harvest in the cane fields, the sky turns black with smoke. So I took our father's gun and a heavy piece of rope, and I left you lying there like rotten fruit upon the ground. And I lit a torch and I burned the whole thing down. Uneasy lies the head, unfaithful is the heart, ungrateful and unlucky and untrue. And no one saw me come, and no one saw me go. Only the blackbirds and you. Our father was a farmer. He planted fields of cane. He planted seeds of evil, and we harvested the shame. Oh, and I'm the last one standing. There's no one left to tell. And when it's my time, I'll see you both in hell. Uneasy lies the head, unfaithful is the heart, ungrateful and unlucky and untrue. And no one saw me come, and no one saw me go. Only the blackbirds and you. And no one saw me come, and no one saw me go. Only the blackbirds and you.
Hi, this is Gretchen Peters. I've been doing some wool gathering. I've been listening to wool, and you're listening to Black Sheep Radio right now. Enjoy.